Hey teachers, in this episode we're going to talk about children who engage in name calling or nastiness. You know what it's like in the lineup, in class, there's always this nitpicking, there's this needling, antagonizing, and it's this low-level conflict that seems to be going on all the time. Usually it will involve a couple of kids that are engaged in this banter on a regular basis. Sometimes it may take the form as one person is the perpetrator, the other person is the victim. Sometimes they're both as bad as each other. Sometimes it's very hard to decipher who's really at fault. But let's have a talk about what you can do about children who are engaging in nastiness or name calling and antagonistic behavior. The first thing I think it's really important to do is you've got to be prepared to work with both children. We have a tendency in school, because rightly so, because we have given a lot of attention to bullying and helping to educate children about bullying. I think it's been really essential that we highlight bullying and that we support children who are being bullied, and we teach children about how wrong it is. But one of the things we've got to do is we've got to learn to work with both children, not just the perpetrator or the person that seems to be at fault. Very often, the situations that erupt in name calling or niggling or antagonistic behavior, children, because we've done so much education on bullying, children immediately default to this: he is bullying me or she is bullying me. And one of the things we've not done a very good job of, in my opinion, is we haven't taught resilience. We haven't taught children that bullying is wrong, but sometimes we've just got to learn to talk through our problems and not react just because somebody looked at us the wrong way, or somebody said something mean in the moment. That doesn't necessarily mean they're being a bully. It means they were being nasty, and we address it, but we got to work with both kids. The child that believes they're being bullied, we've got to teach them resilience, but the child that is maybe behaving inappropriately, we need to work with them and not necessarily default to the assumption that they are being a bully. There may be more to the story. So work with both children. So for the child that's the perpetrator, we've got to teach them empathy, and we've got to understand why they're doing it. There may be some reasons that they perceive why they're doing it. They might think that, that person was doing the wrong thing by them. And so we've got to take the time to figure that out, but also teach them how to empathize with the other person and understand what's going on. A classic example of this, I had this girl that used to come to me and complain about a boy in the class that used to always call her names and tell her to get lost and treated her really quite harshly, and she used to get really upset about it. And so one of the strategies I said, well, one of the things you can do is not go near him in the playground, find somewhere else to play. But it seemed like every lunchtime she found herself with this boy, and she was always in the vicinity of where he was playing. And so when I talked to him about it, and I talked to him about the way that he was talking to her and the appropriateness of that, one of the things he said is, she keeps following me around. She follows me around everywhere, and I'm sick of it. I've told her to stop following me around. I've told her that she needs to find somewhere else to play, but she won't leave me alone. And so now I'm calling her names and I'm being nasty to her because it won't keep her away. You see, what was happening was this girl wanted his attention. And because she didn't know how to do it in an appropriate fashion, she was just becoming annoying. And he was, out of his frustration, expressing his frustration by name calling. So there was a little more to this conversation than just the boy was being mean and we needed to deal with the boy. There was a whole bigger conversation around helping the girl, and this is my third point, helping her to understand appropriate social interaction. She needed to understand that some of her behavior was frustrating him, and she needed to understand that not everybody wants you following them around. And if somebody doesn't want you playing their game, well, okay, that may be something you have to deal with. It may not be nice, but you need to accept that you can't just follow people around and annoy them just because you want to be a part of what they're doing. So we had to work with her about the way that she was interacting with the boy, but we also had to teach him some empathy and say, okay, we understand you're frustrated, you don't like her following you around, but the way in which you're handling it is not appropriate. You can't call her those names and you can't react in that manner. So That really brings me to my fourth point, is take time to understand why. There's usually two sides to the story. There's usually a motivation that underpins everything that's going on, and you need to take the time to listen to both sides of the story and not assume that the name caller is necessarily the person that is the only person in the wrong. There may be much more to the story, and you've always got to ask the question, okay, did you do anything to provoke them? Did you do anything to antagonize the situation? And ask the name caller for their version of events. You can usually, once you've heard both sides of the story, construct a better, more holistic picture of what's going on, but make sure you deal with both parties involved and try to understand why. And then lastly, the fifth thing, did I say I was doing 4? I'm doing 5 things. So the fifth thing is this: you need to teach appropriate responses. Not all children have been taught how to regulate their frustrations and regulate their emotions in appropriate ways. You know, a classic, the high five, which is often taught in primary schools in Australia, where you, if somebody is being unpleasant to you, well, the first thing you can do is just move away. Just ignore them and move away from them. The second thing you can do is you can ask them to stop it. Say, stop, I don't like it. Then you can use a firm voice. I think I messed up the first two. So I think the first one is ignore. Second one is move away. Third one is ask them to stop it. Just stop, I don't like it. Third one is you say it in a firm voice. Stop, I don't like it. And then move away. And of course, the fifth one is go and find a teacher or go and find an adult. A lot of kids, because they haven't learned resilience and they haven't learned appropriate conflict management, they'll always default to number 5. Go and find a teacher and dob on the other child. We need to teach children resilience and problem-solving skills, and so these kinds of levels of communication need to be taught, modeled, and reinforced. So if you've got kids that are niggling at each other, you've got to help them resolve the conflict. Sometimes the conflict may be easy to resolve, sometimes it's a lot bigger. Once you've done that, then you can actually decipher whether it's bullying or not. There may be a genuine bullying situation and that you've got to deal with, but don't use that as the first default response. Take the time to understand, take the time to teach empathy, take the time to teach appropriate responses and conflict management, take the time to teach resilience, and what you will find is over time children become better and better at solving their own problems rather than always having to pull you in to solve their problems for you. I hope that's been helpful. That's the 5 ways that you can address name calling or nastiness in your classroom. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you got a ton of value out of that episode. Don't forget to comment and let us know what you thought, or if you have specific topics you'd like us to cover, let us know in the comments, and make sure you share and like if you know that somebody else will enjoy the content that we're producing. Until next time, I'm Tarun Stevenson for Karma Classrooms.